All right, welcome into the round pen. I am preparing to ride this little 2-year-old colt Chico today, and thought this would be a real good opportunity to just show you all of the skills that I want my colts to know before I ride them. And I do a bit more groundwork probably than the average colt starter, and the reason I do that is because I'm old. Okay, so if you're young and bounce when you hit the ground, you probably don't need to do this much groundwork. There's an old horse trainer saying every time you hit the ground, your groundwork gets better. So what you're going to see today is the result of a lot of bouncing, and in more recent years it's more like a pancake splat rather than a bounce. Okay, Chico here, let me get him moving. I've had him, I think this is either 10 or 11 sessions. I think today's probably number 10, might be 11, and he's ready. He's just a super nice colt, and he was pretty much prepared before I got him, so I haven't had a whole lot of resistance out of him. So number one, first thing I want is I want him to understand that cluck means go. So I'm going to kiss him into a lope here, and he loped right off because I taught him that. He understands if I cluck, it means speed up. If I kiss, it means goes into a lope. I want him to understand that I control speed and direction. That's the next thing. So I backed off. He turned into me. I'm pointing. I'm controlling direction. I kissed, which means trot. Now I'm going to kiss him into a lope. I had to spank just a little bit. We got a nice little mud puddle here I'm trying to avoid, but I may not be successful. Okay, so speed and direction. Let's see if he'll come into me. Ooh, good boy. All right, and this colt will follow me around if I ask him to. So that's all. I'm just showing you today. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time doing all this stuff because he already knows it. And with any colt, I think I've got 20 of these things that they need. With any colt, they're going to be better at some things than they are at others. Everything doesn't have to be perfect, but I do want them to have a basic understanding of those things. All right, and he's pretty good boy. Okay, get the halter on him. The next thing is I want to be able to lead that horse. I want him to lead well, lead properly. And by that I mean don't drag behind me, don't run ahead of me. Just kind of lead around and let me be the leader. And he does. He leads pretty well. If your horse doesn't lead well, then you're going to have the same issue when you're riding him. Okay? Because leading, proper leading, see I'm not pulling on him to get him to follow me. Proper leading is the horse is really hooked onto you. He's following you. You're not dragging him with the rope. And so that kind of needs to be understood. So he leads well. That's good with that. Next, I need to be able to pick up all of his feet. Hello, buddy. He's a real friendly little guy. All right, I need to be able to pick up all 4 feet. He's not as good with this one yet, especially with the back. He's pretty decent with the front. And I want to be able to do that without me having to hold on to him. Okay, he's going to walk off. Oh, bud, you can stand there a second. And this is the part he may not do very well. He may not stand there and let me pick up his feet without me holding on to him. We'll see. And he's fresh. You saw everything we've done, so he's still got a little bit of energy and wanting to move around here. Okay. Okay. All right, so let's get him to pick up this foot here. All right, good. That was pretty good. Once he stood still, he picked it up pretty nicely. Now, does this relate directly to riding? Not exactly, a little bit, as far as him trusting me and standing still, but it's just part of being a broke horse. There's certain things like trailer loading and things like that that may not directly relate with riding, but it's just part of being a broke horse. Okay? Next, I want to be able to get him to what we call clear the shoulders. And this is the first step in lunging. So when I point here, I'm going to point to my right. His left front foot needs to step out, and he needs to clear those shoulders and walk off at a 90-degree angle away from me. Okay, and this is a pretty important move right here. Clear those shoulders, Okay, wasn't bad. Wasn't bad. He could do a little better. All right, let's go the other way. I want you to clear those shoulders this way. There, so I had to use my rope to get him to step over, but he did it. Next thing, I want him to yield the hindquarters, both at a standstill and when I'm lunging him. Okay, so he knows this cue pretty well. He says, I know what you're up to. And I want to be able to just look at those hindquarters like this, and he steps across with those hind legs. All right, nice. And he'll do the same on both sides. All right, next, I want him to lunge quietly. So I'm going to clear the shoulders, going to my left, trot him off. And I like it that he doesn't just run off. That tells you he's pretty calm. When I say lunge quietly, I mean, number one, he's not too excited about it. Number two, he's not pulling on that rope. Now, he did a lot in the beginning. If you watch the very first video I did with him where I said starting a colt without a round pen, he pulled me all over the place. He just didn't understand. He was a little scared, but he's kind of figured it out. So he's lunging around real quietly, and that's all pretty nice. A little more, bud. He'll do it at a walk, trot, and a lope, and I like that. I want to be able to control their speed, because all of this, when you get on their back and put your life in their hands, you need to have a certain amount of control. Good, very nice. Okay, this next thing, which is handle the flag. This is the only one that I have not done with him before today. Everything else you're seeing is a review. And I realized it last night that I had not shown this horse a flag. I just forgot. That's my only excuse. And the fact that he hasn't been real spooky, so it didn't make me think, gee, I need to be flagging that horse. So I don't think he's going to have much of a problem with it. It is a real windy day today. The wind's blowing about 30 miles an hour. Okay, so he might have a little bit more problem with it because it's a windy day. All right, so when I'm introducing that flag, I'm just going to let him follow it for a minute. Let him watch it. Okay. But especially on a windy day, I looked over in the pasture a few minutes ago, and there was a plastic bag flying around up in the air. And the horse I was riding saw it, even though it was 100 yards away. Okay, so that's one of the reasons you want to use something like this to get your horse used to things that flop around and flap around and make noise. Okay, so he's handling that pretty well. He's not overly scared of it. It's bothering him a little. Okay. Yeah, that's about what I expected. And that's better than most horses. Most horses are going to be a bit more bothered by it in the beginning, but this is a pretty gentle horse. He's been handled a fair amount, so he doesn't get overly concerned about this stuff. You want to be able to touch him with it. You also want to be able to move him with it while he's moving around. So I'm going to lunge him here. Get him moving. I want him to be used to it because it's different. When the horse is moving, that's different than when they're standing still. Their brain is in a different gear, and they perceive things differently than they do when they're standing still. Okay, but he's not. See, he's letting me touch him, so he passed that little thing with flying colors. All right, yeah, good. Good. All right, good. So he got a little bothered when I brought it up by his head, but that's okay. All right. So he passes that pretty well. Handle that flag. Next, I want him to back up softly off the pressure of the halter. And there's half a dozen ways to back a horse up from the ground, but one of the ones I want is this one right here. See, I'm not pulling very hard. I'm just asking him to back up. Good. There's other ways to back a horse up from the ground, and I think he knows them. I haven't made a big thing about this because he backs up pretty well. Should be able to wiggle the rope, back him up, maybe make your body energy back him up, but he's fine with that, okay? So he's handling that pretty well. And then I want to be able to saddle that horse easily. Now this horse has been saddled probably 6 or 7 times, I would say. And if you watch the video on the first saddling, he humped up a little bit, and it wasn't because of the saddle that bothered him, it was the back cinch that caused him to hump up. and the back cinch was thumping against his belly, and it scared him. And he actually did that at a lope for about 2 or 3 more days. I think 2 more. 3rd day he quit. But it wasn't the saddle, it was the back cinch, which is something he needs to get used to. So I want to be able to just come in here and saddle this horse just like I've done it his whole life. And he doesn't get too bothered by it, okay? If your horse does, if you're saddling your horse and he's dancing around or running off and making a big thing about it, he's probably not ready to ride, okay? I mean, you can go ahead and ride him if you want to, but he's just telling you he's not okay with what you're doing. And so if the horse tells me that, I need to pay attention. What do you think, Cheek? Huh? Yeah, he's all right. Okay. So let me go ahead and cinch him up here. The back cinch on this saddle, in fact all of my saddles, they're all too big for him. He's a little bit thin in his flank area. He just turned 2 last week, so he's still pretty young. So what I've done, and I'll turn him around here and show you. Turn him around here and show you what I'm doing with this saddle, because I want that back cinch touching him. Can you? He's not cooperating. Come here. Hey. Hey. Thank you. All right. I want... You can stand there. You don't have to keep moving. I want this back cinch touching his belly. And there's the last hole right there. So what I've done is I just pulled it up pretty snug and put it in there like that. And I did that yesterday. It stayed. That's not going to have a whole lot of pressure on it, but it's touching him, and he's fine. What bothered him in the beginning was whenever he loped. Okay, right there, he stepped into me, and he did that because he got just a little bit anxious. Okay, and this doesn't have to be perfect. I told you that it's not going to be perfect. All these 20 different things, but they all need to be good enough that I don't think it's going to cause the horse to lose his mind when I get on him. That's basically my main thing there. When I get on him, is he going to be okay with all this stuff that I'm doing? All right?